All right, heading to the foil shop to return the Unifoil Progression 170 case, which I accidentally took home with me, and hopefully gonna steal another foil from Josh to test.
There he is.
What's up?
What's up, Rob?
Not much. Sorry for holding on to this so long. Forgot about it.
Coming in for the Cloud 9 setup?
Hopefully you got it in there.
Yeah, I do.
All right, it's
Ready to give it to you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so Josh let the cat out of the bag. I'm testing the Cloud 9 FS850 today. Man, I've been wanting to try this foil for a long time. It's like the original forward swept foil. Everyone's been copying it lately. I loved the Code 850, so this will be a really good comparison. I think this is going to have more low end, maybe less top end, but we'll see. Now, this isn't a very big foil. It's only 86 centimeters wide and 850 square centimeters for the surface area. One thing I really love about the Cloud 9 stuff is their design is really good. It's really clean with those stripes and muted colors. It all looks really classy. There it is flipped upside down. You can see a little concave in the wing. And then the rear foil was 117. It's about 13 inches wide. Now, this is really interesting. They have this adjustable fuse, so it allows you to put the rear wing in 4 different spots. So like a long, a medium, a short, and even like a crazy short fuse all in one. It saves you a little bit of money. Pretty cool design. And it is attached to the fuse with 2 screws, and you can see how beefy the connection is. It's really solid, really stiff, and look how big that center of the fuse is in my hand. And it goes all the way through the front of the foil, so it's probably going to be pretty strong for jumping. And I rode this whole setup on the 76 centimeter mast. I don't know if it's high modulus. Felt fairly stiff at 76 with this wing. And the connection at the top, the mast to fuse connection is super, super solid. Unfortunately, that's where we ended up having a problem on this day. You can see those 2 nuts at the top of the mast are brass, and then the screws are stainless. And because that connection is so solid, when I put it on, I don't know if I had it all the way wrenched down. And then when I started tightening the screws, I ended up stripping one of the brass nuts. And I didn't even know if I was going to ride the foil at that point. And the only reason I felt okay about doing it was the one of the screws was fine, and then the other screw, it was sort of like in there, and then the connection is so solid. I was like, you know what? I think I can ride this, but I just better not jump it. And here you can see at the end of the session when I pull it off, it's a really solid connection. And so it held up throughout the whole session, even with just 1 screw into a nut. So that's pretty cool. And then I talked to Chris, one of the owners of Cloud 9 today. I told him what happened. He said, hey, we've never had a problem with that before. And I believe him because he's an honest dude. And he said, just tap out the nut and spin it around and try the other side. I did that. It took me like 3 minutes. It was really easy to do, just like a hammer and a round piece of metal. It popped right out. I flipped it over and it worked. And he said, just in the future, he would just work the foil down and then screw each one in a little bit at a time at the end just to make sure you don't cross thread it. I'd still like to see him use stainless for the nuts, but it's not a big deal. You could replace these really easily, and it might have been my fault. Now that I've got it fixed, I might go ahead and take it out and do a freestyle session on it or a downwinder or something. The wind was ripping when I first went out. It was blowing over 25. I was on a 5 meter. One nice thing about the foil, it was super light because it's not very big. And then, the mast was light as well. It was only 76 and not high modulus. I got in the water, and this is the first time I'm trying to get up, and it might look like I'm struggling here. It's not because of the low end. The foil has crazy low end, way more than I even expected, and I expected it to have good low end. Crazy lift. What I'm struggling with here is I had the foil where I thought it should be, and oh my gosh, the front foot pressure was just like insane. I couldn't believe how much lift this had. I didn't know where to stand. I'm so far forward, and it was still lifting me out of the water. I went back in. I had to move the foil almost all the way to the back of my tracks, and then that was about right, which is crazy because I ride at the front of the tracks with my Viper 150. So, of course, the first thing I tried was some swell riding because that just seemed like what the foil would be good at since it had all that lift. And yeah, it's amazing for riding swell. Here you can see me. I'm just able to pump the heck out of it. And then, when there's a little swell, I'm able to coast a little bit and turn and carve on it and keep the power up. And, there was decent swell for Cabrillo because it was so windy, but this is not good swell. This is, I've talked about it a lot of times. Cabrillo swell is not good swell. I don't know why. It just isn't. Yeah, if you're on, big swell, you could downwind forever on this thing. And then here you see me try and rip a turn and boom, tips out just like ripping around, no problem. And here's another little bit of swell riding. It's just, you could downwind on this foil. If you had any decent conditions, and I'm 200 pounds. I'm 200 pounds, and look at this thing. It's just carrying me. I'm not even working like that hard. And I wasn't able to pump it indefinitely without swell or without any sort of momentum. But if I had anything, I could pump it as much as I wanted. And it was fast enough that you could pump it across waves as well. You didn't have to just go into the back channels. You could go across waves because it had some speed to it. Yeah, there I'm just probably going to get some seaweed off the foil. And yeah, here's me. That's my friend Adrian. We went and chased down a boat to try and get to its swell. And one thing I've been working on with the swell riding is trying to get that toe side pump down, and so I can go both directions and carry on forever. And I was able to pump really well going toe side on this foil because it's so good at pumping. And then, trying to make the turn, I kept missing the turn and not landing on the swell on the other side. So I don't have a clip of me connecting one both ways. But if there was good swell, yeah, no problem. This for me is a downwind machine. You can just do whatever you want on it. I didn't do a lot of turns because I don't know, I just didn't feel like it. But I did do this one behind the back tack, and it's a really good test to see glide. If you get around that and don't touch down, that tells you the foil's got good glide. Because I didn't want to jump with that one screw in the fuse, I started working on these little skid outs and some tips out stuff because it just felt like the foil had such good breach recovery that, yeah, I was like, yeah, you see me doing these little wheelies. I think Florida Foilers called it that on Instagram. And then here just trying to do that skid out. I never got like a perfect one, but you can see I'm recovering very easily. And then let's see if I start doing the tips out. I think here we go. Yeah, boom, look at that. No problem. Still on foil. Super easy. That one I think I come off foil, but still able to recover. The foil's got a little bit of turned up tips, so it enables it to breach really well and doesn't mess you up. Which means it's probably also good in turbulence and turbulent waves, surfing the turbulent waves. Whenever you're in that white water, if a foil doesn't handle breaches well, you can kind of get that fluttering sensation and lose the lift. But it was cool. I haven't really done too much with the tips out before. Or the wheelies. I think there's a wheelie coming up there. Yeah. I did try a couple of speed runs, but I wasn't really able to get the foil going that fast. And the problem was all of that lift, when you started going really fast, then the lift started getting like just crazy. I couldn't keep the foil in the water almost. Look, I'm having to put so much front foot pressure. So if you wanted to do some speed runs, you'd have to maybe do like a negative shim or move the foil all the way back. And I think you could get a little bit more speed out of it. But I think that's the trade-off here. The foil has a ton of lift. It's just not going to be as much top end. On the other side, I think I could ride the next size down in this foil and go fast and still be able to glide and have easy starts. Okay, so I just got off the water testing the Cloud 9 FS850. Gotta give it up to Chris and the guys at Cloud9. I feel like they were really ahead of the game with this forward swept design. Really funny trying this after the Progression 170 and the Code 850, because it really feels like this foil lives right in the middle of those two. It's got a lot more low end. I don't know about a lot, but it's got more low end than the Code 850, and maybe not quite as much as the Progression 170. Obviously, the Progression 170 is a lot bigger. So yeah, I feel like this foil lives right in between the Progression 170 and the Code 850. Obviously, the Progression 170 is bigger, but they all sort of live in that same world in terms of lift. This thing has a ton of lift. It gets going really quickly, and it just wants to ride really high and out of the water. Almost too much lift, honestly. I had it really far back in the tracks, but I was able to pump it like crazy and get some really long swell rides. And it is fast enough to go over the swell if you have to, whereas sometimes I felt like the Progression 170 was not. The Code, definitely fast enough to go over the swell. But this seemed to ride in the pocket maybe a little bit better than the Code 850. Hard to tell, I haven't been on that in a little while. I'm not sure about how I feel about this tail. I don't think I really liked it. This adjustable fuse system is interesting. At first I went out, I felt like it was really squirrely, so I moved it back to the back, and then I felt like that was way too locked in, so then I brought it back, I moved the foil back. I don't know. I'm not sure it's the best tail. Maybe I would put like a Katie Maui tail on it and try it out with that. It's super beefy construction. Like, all this is really, really beefy. And then the way it sits into the mast, it's really, really strong. The only problem is I stripped one of the mast to fuse nuts like the first time I put it on. But because this joint is so stiff, and I had the other one screw okay, I said, let's try it out. And I just didn't do any jumping or any flips or anything. I don't think it turned as well as the Progression 170, which is interesting because it's a bigger foil, but that Progression has that, you know, turn down tips. But this, you know, it turns well. It does have sort of a little bit of the turned up tips. So I was trying to breach it, and even some of the foil slides, and yeah, it definitely breaches pretty well. I was on the shorter mast, so sometimes I would accidentally breach, and I was able to save it most of the time. But I think maybe it could be turned up a little bit more to handle the ventilation better. Overall, it's an awesome foil. It's interesting because Chris is like an absolute ripper in the surf. So I expected this to be more of a surf wing, but in my opinion, this is like a downwinding wing. It's not super fast. It's not super turny. I mean, it turns well for the size. What it really does well is ride swell. I think I could downwind really, really well on this foil. There were some good conditions when we first went out, and I was getting some good long rides. If it was like over in Malibu with the big swell, or up in NorCal, you could do, you know, 5-minute runs easy, pumping both ways. I was trying that a little bit, and this foil is awesome for that. Also, the Cloud9 stuff just looks awesome. I would love to try the 1350 because that's even a little bit bigger, and that probably pumps like crazy, probably glides like crazy on any swell. I would say I probably would gear more toward the Code 850. It takes a few more pumps to get on foil, but that extra speed for me doing freestyle carving waves, I think I like it a little bit better. But if your conditions are kind of crappy, this is maybe a better solution than the Progression 170. It kind of gives you a little bit in between. Yeah, check it out. Cloud9, gotta give Chris respect for starting this trend in shaping. And maybe I'll try some of their stuff in the future if they send me some more stuff to try. Peace out. All right, so pretty hungry after doing that demo on the Cloud9, so I'm gonna go and check out my best friend's bar, brand new, opened in Silver Lake. It's called Drugstore Cowboy, and it's awesome, and you should come. This is the famous Elliott Smith mural from his album cover. I dated a girl who had that tattoo on her foot, actually. Trey.
Yeah.
If in my video, I'm gonna tell foilers if they come to Drugstore Cowboy and they mention the wingman or foiling to you or Matt, you probably should tell him, I'll buy their first drink and then I can settle their tab at the end of the month.
Sounds like a plan to me. Drugstore Cowboy, Silver Lake. Come on over, wingers. We'll love to have you.